right now still do street EMS on a regular basis. Out treating patients all the time. How many guys in here do it with and don't work with it? One of the things that we see as field providers is we kind of see this unfortunate recurring cycle of seeing the same patients over and over again, sometimes for dependency and addiction issues. You know, I once had a patient that I woke up in the same shift as a paramedic. I woke the same patient up 3 times. Had a patient, 2-3 weekends ago, that I woke up and I wasn't even keeping track of. The patient told me it was the 11th time I had woken him up from a opiate overdose. And when we look at this, and we get exceptionally frustrated as EMS providers that we see this and we don't really know how to help these folks find the right help to break that cycle. And then even worse, we sometimes don't recognize that we have people, we have coworkers and peers among us who have these issues. And, you know, we used to think of it as a thing, it's this thing, it happens in an alley, it happens in Kansas City, we don't see it anyplace else. And the point was really driven home, at least to me personally, when an ER physician who I have respected for years and years and years suddenly retired. And it turned out that the reason that the ER physician, you know, a guy I looked to for advice, a guy who I truly admire for his patient care, his knowledge base, he retired because he had a dependency issue. And if we think about it, probably everybody in this room, and I don't want anybody to raise their hands, and I certainly don't want anybody shouting any names, but probably if I asked everybody in this room individually, we all know of somebody who has had or currently has an addiction and dependency issue that has been their downfall. You know, if you look at it over the course span of a couple of years, you know, you see this person just take such a huge tumble. So, in keeping with our theme of doing things that are not necessarily 100% medical today, I've asked Gregory Maurer to speak to us today about addiction and dependency. And again, hopefully it's information none of us need, but I think in reality, every one of us is going to find out information that would be beneficial to somebody that we either know personally or we know professionally. So with that, everybody please give a warm welcome to Greg Maurer.
Am I on? Can everybody hear me? Thanks, Andy. My name is Greg Maurer. I'm nationally certified drug and alcohol interventionist. For those who don't know what drug and alcohol interventionist is, it's my job to try to convince somebody who struggles with substance abuse that they need help. Sometimes it's not always the easiest task. Sometimes we run into a lot of toxic families or toxic relationships. You're walking and people are throwing hair dryers across the room. But I love it. That's what I do. And sometimes you have people who understand that and appreciate the communication. It makes my job a little bit easier. I want to thank everybody for having me out here. This is huge. This is an honor. And it really is. And I'll get to that a little bit later on as to why it's so big. It's such a big deal to me. I'd like to start out by telling a story. The story is about the first client that I ever had. And we sat down and we discussed this in great detail. And we brushed up and he told me all the ins and outs of things I missed. I had known him for a long time. We're actually really close friends. And it's a phenomenal story of success. Going all the way back to where we started, just high school. The kid struggled really bad. And I won't call him a kid this whole time because in all honesty, I was a grown man. A respectable man at that. This individual in high school, he had what was called kyphosis. He had an issue with his spine, he had a hunch, and he was picked on, he was tormented by everybody, so he didn't really have many friends. He wasn't really the type of individual to try to fit in. He more so gravitated towards other people who didn't fit in and just tried to be like the ringleader of the misfit crowd. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. Of course, as in high school, a lot of people, they drink and they party on the weekends and they experiment with smoking pot, things like that. When this kid started smoking pot, something turned on for him. It wasn't just going out with friends and enjoying the high. Something turned on where this kid felt like the thing that was missing his entire life was found. That piece of acceptance, not just for the people, but he found something he could depend on and always be there for him. And he gravitated towards it, again, not just for the feeling he got, but everything about it. The lifestyle, the fact that it was wrong, it was illegal. It's like you got to rush off. Moving along, of course, that spiraled into drinking excessively on the weekends. Now he's starting to get involved with the in-crowd. He's starting to find acceptance. So he finds acceptance with these people that obviously aren't the good crowd, but they're the cool kids. So then he's drinking excessively every weekend. Quite a few times into blackout drinking. For some reason, he found that as comfort. When most people think that that's absolutely insane. And the marijuana use was all day, every day. It was his focus. Now he wants to sell the stuff. So now it comes to criminal temperament. And in his head, he could be a somebody. He could be a drug dealer. Sounds insane, right? This is the thinking of my client. This is how he thought. He felt like an important person. He could buy some cool clothes, and then maybe he could throw some money around. He could buy people's friendships with this money. And he loved every bit of it. Moving forward just a little bit, I think we all know where this story's going. He had a back surgery. They fixed his back, they fixed his spine, they straightened him out. He was also vastly overweight, maybe 250, 260 pounds for his age. That's pretty heavy. He has a back surgery. He's like this brand new person. And he swore to his family that he was going to stop doing all the things he was doing. He was going to be a brand new person. He was going to start all over again. All over again. It's a brand new slate. Nobody's going to pick on him. He'll finally be accepted. After the surgery, he met something everybody here is familiar with, and that's Percocet, pain management. Now, with marijuana and alcohol being that thing he felt like he was missing his whole life, and the way he described it is he didn't want to be anywhere near it. He had a healthy fear of prescription narcotics, and he had experiences within his family where they completely lost their way to Percocet and opiates, prescription. He said, no, I'll never do it, I can't do it. And the pain got great enough, and he took his first one. And now that was the thing he'd been missing his whole life. He said, I feel amazing. I don't feel the pain. I can do anything I want to do. And it gave him that euphoric sense of Superman, as everybody likes to refer to him as. Now go a little bit further, of course, we all know what happens after the prescription narcotics. Eventually the doctor cuts him off. He can't have any more Percocets. When you take away something that somebody loves so dearly and it makes them whole, because addicts in general, they're trying to fill this void, this thing that they're missing, this thing that they don't have, the thing they missed out on, the thing that's keeping them from getting friends, and the thing that keeps people from getting close to them, the thing that makes them feel uncomfortable in their own skin. And then they took that from them. So of course that's not the end for somebody like this. He's going to find it. So he starts doctor shopping, going to the ER late night visits to try to get these Percocets. And then of course when you can't get that and that stops working, then what? Let's go to the street. Now he's buying Percocets off the street. He's buying Oxycontin because now his tolerance is starting to grow. So now he needs something stronger. So he goes to Oxycontin, maybe 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams, which turns into 80 milligrams, which turns into taking 2 80-milligram tablets, which if anybody knows anything about these pills, 2 of them for the first time use is enough to put down a horse. And of course the addiction progresses. And when the oxycontins get too expensive, he finds a new friend. He finds heroin. And this is where life spirals completely out of control. He doesn't know what to do. He still doesn't quite admit that he's an addict. He's 18 years old, and this is when he went to his first treatment. He went to his first treatment, and I don't know much about what happened while he was in treatment, but I know when he got out, all he said was, I am not like them. I did this drug a couple of times. These guys are junkies. They're shooting heroin every single day. They're talking about shooting up cocaine in their neck. It's insane. And pardon if this sounds a little bit crazy, but I'm going to be very forward and real during this presentation. He said they're shooting cocaine in their neck. They're out of their minds. They're talking about robbing stores for baby formula to get money. I don't understand it. That's not me. I smoke pot. I do a little coke. Sometimes I sniff heroin. It's just a party thing, you know, when I'm hanging out. Absolute denial. He had no idea the path that he was about to take, the destruction and devastation that was about to come from him. And I remember speaking to him, and he said, you know, I don't know what to do. I don't think I'm an addict. I don't belong with those guys. But yeah, I think I need to get my stuff together. And I said, I think you need to reevaluate all of your decision-making skills. I think you need to evaluate where you're really at in life. No, I'm going to be okay. I'll be just fine. I can do this on my own. I can stop this anytime I want. I just choose to do it. It's fun. It makes me feel good. Of course, that's not the end of the story. He goes on, and at the time he went to treatment, he was in the probation system because he had gotten in trouble with maybe possession of marijuana or CBS in some form or another. So he's on probation. Of course, that treatment center that he came back from, he left against medical advice, so he didn't complete. He got himself in a little bit of trouble. And that wasn't the end of the story for trouble either. It wasn't enough. A lot of people say that isn't getting in trouble or going to jail enough for you? The probation, you got to go and pee in a cup every single week. Is that not enough? Of course it's not enough. But remember, he said he can stop anytime he wants. So now he's back out. He didn't go to jail yet. He's on the streets. He's showing up to probation. He's carrying people's urine in little tubes, little cigar tubes. So he can pour it into the cup and pass the drug tests. But I'm getting over on the system, he thought. I'm genius. Now I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. All I got to do is bring somebody else's clean urine in a little tube and pay $10 for it to get away with it. Sounds insane, but that was his thinking. So that was short-lived, to say the least. As time went on, he found himself going further and further into his addiction, and then he found good old Camden County Corrections. He sat in Camden County Jail for maybe a month or two on a serious charge. Serious charge. He got picked up out in North Camden. Now he's in jail, and he said, okay, it's time to make a connection between the two. I keep getting in trouble. I violated probation. Now I'm in jail because of the only one thing in my life that I love, that I fell in love with. Now I'm sitting in a jail cell. Maybe I have a problem. So he went on and in the Camden County Correctional Facility, they had something called the Second Chance Program. It was a drug and alcohol program for those who want to try to get better while inside the jail. Definitely not the best program. But he met a drug and alcohol counselor in there, and his counselor, from what he explained, planted a lot of seeds. They talked about some of his insane thinking. He didn't like what he was being told. I remember visiting him in there briefly. Some of the things he said, his thought process was still out of whack. The craziest part about it is he enjoyed feeling like a somebody in jail. He felt like a somebody in jail. He hung out with the guys that were shaving their heads. He joined this little clique because in jail, I think we all understand how that is from watching Oz, I imagine. So he gets involved in this group, and now he feels like he's part of something. He's off drugs, he's clean and sober, but he's talking about being part of this thing. At the same time, he's got the other side, he's got this drug counselor telling him he's crazy. He needs to get it together. And then that counselor introduced him to 12 steps of an anonymous fellowship, which I won't get into detail about what that fellowship is, because it's against that fellowship's traditions, not to speak of them outside of that fellowship. So now he's introduced to the 12 steps of this fellowship. And he starts reading this book, and he realizes that this book is all about him. It's all about him. Everything in there he can relate to, how that drug made him feel whole, that void that he's had his whole life, about acceptance, about feeling comfortable in his own skin. A switch came on. He said, maybe this isn't right, maybe this isn't the way to live. He had that little moment of clarity. I remember talking to him briefly, saying, that's it, you found it, that's it, that book, it's all about you. It is all about you. You're not just thinking it's about you, it is. There's another way to live. You don't have to be this person. You don't have to be out there shooting drugs and robbing and stealing. He got out of jail, needless to say, even though that little seed was planted, he went back. He went back out to the streets of Camden within the first day, and he was using it in the first day. And I asked myself, what are you thinking? You just did 16 months on the inside, Camden County, then on to prison, you had to go through Trenton. Do you even consider what you're doing to your family? Do you have any remorse for the things you did, the people you stole from? What kind of person are you? So now he's out there using it. He ran out of resources for money. His family has completely cut him off. What is there left to do? But live on the streets. Try to find somebody to manipulate or take advantage, make them feel bad for him so he can slide on in. Find a couch to sleep on, something like that, and then take whoever had the biggest heart, take them for everything that they've got. Everything that they got. That person that took him in happened to be his cousin. He robbed him for their jewelry. And amongst some other people that he robbed. And I spoke to him briefly. I said, man, what are you thinking? Now you got the cops after you, you just robbed your own cousin. You're sick. You're sick. You're dependent on heroin. You are dependent, you're sick, you need to get help. No. I'm okay. What else am I going to do if I get help? What am I going to do? What is there out there for me? I'm uneducated. I don't have any trades or skills. What's the point of living? My family's cut me off. I got nowhere to turn, nowhere to go, but to the streets. So now he's got the cops after him. He robbed his own cousin. Finally, it all comes to a head. He's back in jail again. At this point, what more can I say to this guy? What more can I say to him? Is he a lost cause? Is there no hope for this person? But I've known this guy a really long time. I definitely didn't want to give up on him. So he does a couple of months inside Darlington County Jail. After he's released, that same counselor, he's a good guy, I know him very well also, this same counselor that he met back in Camden County Jail becomes like a mentor. Remember, he still doesn't have his family. His family's done. They don't trust him. They think he's scum. They want to believe that he's still that good-hearted person that they grew up with. But at the same time, his actions have proven he can't be trusted. So he he's got no family, he's got nowhere to turn, he gets out. He doesn't want to use it again, but he still has nothing else. So that counselor overstepped his limits just a little bit. But he must have seen the same thing in this kid that I saw in this kid. He took him in, he put him on the couch, he called a friend up, and he got him a job doing home remodeling and construction down in, Brigantine. After Hurricane Sandy hit, the kid had to get up, and the counselor, I commend this counselor, he got up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning, woke up the kid off the couch, said, come on, let's go, drove him to Lindenwold Station, the kid got on the train, rode an hour down to Atlantic City, then took a bus for an hour, all the way to the last stop, wherever it was he had to work, Brigantine, I guess we'll say. So the kid traveled for 2 hours in the morning, worked a 10-hour day, did the same thing to get home. The guy he worked for was a real stickler. Real stickler. I know him personally, actually. This kid works for it. He's not the nicest guy to work for. He would, if he bought you breakfast in the morning, he's taking that out of your pay at the end of the day. You know, and then you just travel 2 hours to get to work, you got to go 2 hours home. It's not like you're driving, you got to take the trains and wait for the buses. But something about this time was different. He wanted to be somebody. He wanted to do something. He didn't know what. He had no direction. But he knew he didn't want to shoot heroin anymore. Something inside of him said, I have a chance. Maybe I could do this. At the same time, I remember speaking to him. He said, we got to sit down. We got to sit down. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm working at a deli slice lunch meat. This was after the shore work and sometime. He said, I'm at a deli slice lunch meat. I'm making $7, $8 an hour. I can't even pay my bills. I can't pay my car insurance. At this point now, his family starts to kind of come back around a little bit because he's doing good. He's staying off the drugs. He's involved with that fellowship, that 12-step fellowship that I talked about a little bit ago. I remember talking to him. He was ready to give up again. And I said, there's only 2 ways that you can go here. You can blow your brains out, or you can keep going until you figure it out. And when I say blow your brains out, that's not suicide. What I mean, we both had the understanding. Shooting heroin, or going back to the streets. He decided that somewhere in there has to be a little bit of hope. All along, I believed he could do it. I knew that this guy had immeasurable potential. He could be anything he wanted to be, do anything he wanted to do. He was intelligent, even if he didn't have that college education that some others had. I knew he had it in him. He didn't see it. He didn't believe it. People had to tell him all the time. But I knew it was there. I knew that this kid had it. So he stays clean for a little while. But then he finds that his back is up against the wall. He lost the job at the deli. The construction stuff was way long gone. So now he's got no job. Keep in mind, he's a convicted felon. He's starting to get his life back together a little bit, and his girlfriend gets pregnant. So now he's got a kid on the way. All the while, after jail, he had accumulated some, this is in the past, he accumulated some other charges. I mean, there's a lot to the story, so I'm jumping around a little bit. He accumulated some other charges, so he had some stuff pending in Gloucester County. They wanted to throw him in prison for it. They wanted to put him in prison, so now he's doing good all this time. But he had his own possession charge. They wanted to throw him away. 3 years. No lawyer could help him. He went to multiple lawyers. Nobody could help him. He had a public defender and a prosecutor that just couldn't wait to put him back behind bars where he belonged, because he's an addict, right? He's a junkie. You know what? Once a junkie, always a junkie, right? Throw him in jail. Throw away the key. Forget about him. He might be doing good now, but chances are he's just going to end up going back. That's what they all do. They just go back. They use again. They rob people again. They hurt people again. That's just what addiction is, right? So let's recap. He's got a kid on the way. He can't get a job at Walmart. He's facing 3 years in prison. But he doesn't give up. Of course, he's in touch with me every time something happens. He's in touch with me every single time if he hits a bump in the road or a red light, he's in touch with me. I can't stand it. I'm frustrated. I'm aggravated. Nobody will give me a shot. Nobody will give me a job. I'm a convicted felon. I'm never going to be anything or anybody with my life. It's pointless. There's no hope. No, there is hope. There's always a way. There's always a solution. You just need to have a little bit of faith. Just a little bit. Just a little mustard seed of hope. That something might go right in your life. A little bit more time passes. He applies for some drug program in Gloucester County. He was denied. He was frantic. He went up for an appeal. He lost. I got a kid on the way. I'm not going to be here for the birth of my child, he says. It's in God's hands, brother. Have a little bit of faith. Just a little bit. Just that little mustard seed of hope that we're talking about. The day that he lost his appeal, apparently some of the things that I had said to him sunk in. They must have. Because the public defender said, I'm going to go to the appellate division with this. I think we can win. He turned to his public defender, and I was in the courtroom that day. He turned to his public defender when he lost his appeal, and he said, it's in God's hands. So that little bit of faith that I tried to feed into him finally starts to stick. The only people in the room that heard that was myself, the public defender, and the prosecutor. This is where the story gets good. The very next day, client gets on an airplane to go to Orlando with his family. The very first person in the very first row on that plane was the prosecutor that denied him the day before flying out of Atlantic City. What are the chances? What are the chances? You turn to your public defender and you say, I accept this. I did what I did. I can accept the consequences of my actions. No matter what, I'm going to be okay. And then you listen to the prosecutor on a plane flying out of Atlantic City to Orlando. Him and the prosecutor had a conversation that day. And then the prosecutor realized that this kid is not so bad either. And then the prosecutor saw the same thing in this kid that the counselor saw, and the same thing that I saw in this kid. And he still didn't quite see it in himself. But he was getting there. He did a little bit of hope, a little mustard seed of hope. Somebody says, listen, get in service. The counselor tells him, get in service and start helping people. Stop sitting in your problems. Go out there and help somebody who has real problems. Yeah, you're facing some jail time. You got a kid on the way. I get that. You know, it all sounds bad, but there's people out there that are still shooting heroin. Now, this is the Gloucester County Emergency Medical Services. So you guys know the severity of shooting heroin. I don't think I have to explain it. People die and overdose every couple minutes of every day. So go out there, get in service, and help some people. And he did. He went out and started helping people off the streets of Camden. Didn't really know what to do with them. He just went and talked to them, and then he found like these programs up in Kensington that would take them in, they would help them. So now he's helping people. He doesn't have a leg to stand on, and he's trying to help some people. Doing that for about a month, just trying to stay outside of his own head and keep his chin up about the problems that he has. Good for him. Within about a month of doing that, he gets a phone call from the treatment center down in Florida. They said, listen, we heard about you. We know what you're doing. We want to give you a job. We want you to be our outreach coordinator. We want you to share the message that recovery recovery from active addiction is possible. We want you to help people. We want you to go to professionals and outpatients and let them know that we're here. I can do that. Of course. I mean, what other option does he have? It's either go 100 miles an hour in one direction or stay where he's at. You got nothing to lose at that point, so he does it. He goes for it. He says, okay, I'll take the job. And of course, we sat down and talked, and he said, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. I don't know if I'll be good at it. He was filled with fear. I said, well, is your heart pure? Are you on good spiritual ground? Are you living right? Are you making the right decisions on a daily basis? Reaffirming your convictions as the person that you once were? Reminding yourself that you are an addict, that you can go back. You're going to be on the front lines of this thing now. Are you spiritually fit? Are you strong? Are you ready? The answer was yes. All right. Go for it. So he did. So he worked for this treatment center for a little while. Then he went on and he started his own company. He said, I don't want to work with just one treatment center. I want to provide solutions to everybody who struggles with addiction. Wow. Wow. You took an idea and you ran with it. Good for you. Taking some initiative. Doing something for the greater good. Finally. So as a little bit more time goes on, and I'm going to go back just a little bit, because this same guy, when he was all messed up and strung out, he went to this church. Some guy on the bus handed him a phone number for this pastor. I mean, the kid's not religious by any means. Of course, he found some spirituality and all that, but he's not religious. But he had nowhere else to turn. At some point, he wanted to go get help from this pastor. The pastor fed him and said, do you want to come home with me? I'll give you a place to stay so you can try to clean yourself up. Little did the pastor know what would come. The kid said, no, I don't have any money, I don't have any drugs. There's a good chance that I might rob you in the morning. So I'm going to go on about my way. And he did. But that little run-in with the pastor that he had, he said, I want to go and I want to give back to that church where that pastor tried to help me. Get out. So he goes back to the church and he says to the pastor, I want to start a family recovery group. It's not AA, it's not NA, it's not Norma, it's not Al-Anon. But everybody's welcome. When everybody did come, the pastor said, well, what do you mean? It's not Christ-based, it's not about Jesus? No. He said, well, then I don't really want it. I appreciate your efforts, but I'm not interested. But the kid wasn't deterred. He stayed on top of him, and he believed that this was the purpose. You need to bring something together to show everybody. To show everybody how serious this is, and that there's hope, that there's a solution. All in the same room. A lot of these anonymous fellowships, they have rules and stipulations and guidelines, and they're not open formats, and these people need to come in and just hear a message of hope. You know what it's like to be a parent? And I'm sure some of you do. You know what it's like to be a parent whose kid struggles with addiction and you have no idea what to do? So good for him. He came up with an idea, a format, a place for them to go. And he stayed committed to it since. So through doing this, he gets a little bit of recognition. He gets a little recognition for his efforts. Again, good for him. So he's doing the family group for a little while, this family addiction recovery group, and it starts to grow. It starts to grow from the 10 original members that started to 30 and 40 people every single week. This is all great stuff, but he still has to face the wreckage of his past. He still has to go to court and face the judge. So it turns out that public defender wasn't lying when he said he wanted to go to the appellate division. He put together a long 40-page brief. He submitted to the appellate division. The appellate division accepted to hear his case. He goes to court in front of a panel of 3 judges. Now the prosecutor who got to know him, the community got to know him for doing some good things. And now, just like I believe, that when he's starting to believe in himself, he goes in front of 3 judges. They rule in his favor. They overturn the decision. And he wins. With just that little bit of faith, that little bit of hope. So now he's a free man. Sort of, there's a probationary period. eyes really start to believe that there's something to this thing. He's helping people on a daily basis. He's working with families. He's committed to his family group. Of course, he can't lose sight that he's only got what he's got because he's not using drugs anymore. But on a daily basis, he has to remind himself that he's an addict and he's not drug-proof. He can still go back. He still has to be accountable for his recovery. So a little bit more time goes on. He gets some recognition in the South Jersey Times now. Through that, he started getting calls from all over the country. Different treatment centers, different non-for-profit organizations. And then he gets a call, and this guy asks him to speak at Rowan University, Sunday, March 22nd at 1 p.m. Nothing I could put on paper, nothing I could think of, but a real, true success story. Somebody who made it through addiction and got their life together. But I am not unique. I am not special. People make it every single day, one day at a time, without using drugs. My message here today is that there is hope. Recovery from addiction is possible. And people don't just get clean and sober. With all the chips stacked against them, they can turn their lives around. They can be successful people. As of a month ago, I was offered can't even find the word for it, an amazing position with a national company who does outreach all over the country, everywhere. We can provide solutions for everyone. Another thing that I dealt with was a conflict within myself. Everything here was conflict within myself. It was my conscience. When I spoke to my client, that was my conscience. Me being the person that I am now, clean and sober and on good spiritual ground. There was still that little piece of me in there. But I had to try to get in touch with my spirit because the me that was in active addiction, or even just clean, without any spiritual principles, I was still insane. And only every once in a while did I get in touch with that righteous spirit who had the best interest for me and what I really should do. There's millions of people in this country. 1 in 4 people is affected by addiction. So that means the person that waited on you at the restaurant last night could very well be an addict. The guy that pumped your gas could very well be an addict. The physician that you saw last week for your regular checkup could be an addict. The lawyer you hired to get out of your DUI could be an alcoholic or an addict. 1 out of 4 people is affected by addiction. I'll repeat it. So let's, obviously not raise hands, but let's look around the room. I know that I'm talking to 1 in 4 people in this room whose sons, whose daughters, whose husbands, whose wives, and even themselves personally have some sort of issue with substance abuse, alcohol, addiction. The point of my story is that there's a solution to it. There's a solution. This can be done. This can be overcome. We can be part of it. I urge anybody who's struggling with addictions in any form or another, because addiction is not just drugs and alcohol. Addiction to substances was a symptom. I was the problem. So when I put down the drink and the drugs, when I talk about being spiritually fit, that means I'm not gambling. That means I'm not in pardon for being forward, watching porn incessantly. chasing after women. It's a sick disease. It really is. It's a disease of the mind. We justify things. We minimize things. It's not so bad. But anything can become an addiction, no matter what it is. I'm still an addict. How am I held accountable for impulsive spending habits and things like that? It sounds ridiculous, but it really gets that small. I also have a criminal temperament about me from the early stages. There's things I didn't talk about. That has to be addressed as well. I am still a smoker. I smoke cigarettes. But when I open that pack, I do not throw the wrapper out the window. Why? Because it goes all the way down to that little thing. That one little thing could snowball effect because I am conscious that it's the wrong thing to do. So this stuff runs deep. It runs really deep. And a lot of things have to be looked into. But my point is, again, coverage possible. You heard me say, once a junkie, always a junkie. That's the stigma. That's what I was brought here to speak about today, is the stigma of addiction and the way that people view it. Once a junkie, always a junkie. He's a loser. He's nobody. Let him rot in jail. That's not the truth. The sad reality, people die every single day. And again, your sons, your nephews, your cousins, your sisters, your wives, your husbands, people die. Whether it's alcohol, whether it's heroin. A big one is prescription medication. Well, the doctor prescribes it, so that's okay. No. People die from that. Even though you're prescribed doesn't mean you don't take too many and you crash your car into a tree. Boom. That's out. And you guys know, you are the first responders. You are on the front line in the battle against addiction on a daily basis. One thing that was brought to my attention this morning, it's like Andy said, he had 3 saves in the same day with Narcan. Narcan is opiate reversal, for those who don't know, even though this room is filled with people that do know. 3 saves in one day. I did a little interview at Pine Hill Police Department, because now police officers are allowed to carry Narcan and try to revive individuals from overdose. One officer had 8 saves. So I asked the question, were any of these saves repeat offenders? He said, well, yeah, 4 of them were the same guy. So here's another thing. I only have 5 minutes left. Here's another thing that I want to talk about. When you guys pick somebody up from an overdose and you take them to the hospital, why is it they're released within an hour or 2 hours? Why isn't it they're just settled away? Medical clearance? All right, have a good one. You just go do the same thing over and over and over. This is what drug and alcohol interventionists are for, to get those people and stop the process. That process can be stopped. Otherwise, they're just going to keep coming in on overdoses until they're dead. And I'm sure emergency medical services, everybody here probably has a little piece of that story themselves. Oh man, here's Joey again. He's on the floor. Geez, mom's crying. And I bring him back again. This is like the 5th time. When's this kid going to learn? When he's made aware, when a solution is put in place, all of us at some point we need to seek detox. Medical detox is necessary. Nobody's just going to stop when they're physically dependent. It's not going to happen. If somebody does it, I applaud them, but I almost never see it. And then treatment. Treatment is it's necessary. As addicts, we need to learn about ourselves. We need to learn how to cope with life on life's terms on a daily basis, every day. Life is going to show up. But as addicts, what we do is we run towards our safe place, and that's drugs. There is a solution to this. It starts with everybody in this room. Every single person here that's a first responder is a solution to the epidemic of addiction. We're all solutions. You get that kid, you bring him back to life. If he's conscious and you can get 2 words in even, it's trying to guide that person. And I understand. You do this so often, you get desensitized. And I get it, because I get a little desensitized too. But if we all just took an extra minute to go that extra mile to talk to somebody within the hospital, or to try to talk to this individual, or talk to their family, to try to get this person the real help that they need. And I don't care if they have, if they don't have the resources that would afford them the opportunity to get treatment. I do. There's so many things out there. There's government funding, and there's grants, and it's easily accessible within Gloucester County. There's plenty of organizations that can jump into a little computer system and have them funded within a day. Of course, bed space is an issue. We'll fix that. We'll find solutions. Nobody else has to die for this. We bring them back, but then what? Right now, I'm a nationally certified drug and alcohol interventionist, and that's all I have.
I've done a lot of great things in my career, but not as great as what this guy just did. Greg, on behalf of everybody in this room, from our heart, thank you for opening our eyes. We're going to take a 10-minute break real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. We have some
numbers would be called or get to our patient?
Yes, absolutely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to provide everybody with a card that I have with my personal phone number on it. 24/7. Everybody in this room can call me. If you don't get me, I'll ensure that your call is directed to the treatment helpline, which is a group of individuals, and I guarantee they're going to take the time to help you. But I will more than likely answer your call. I never let a call slide. If I miss it, I'm back on the phone within 10 minutes.
Is there like an emergency hotline that patients can call?
Yeah. Yes, I can provide that number also for crisis situations. Of course, I mean, if it's we're talking suicide, of course they need to call you guys. You know? But when it comes down to substance abuse, I can provide solutions anywhere in the country. I have a team of individuals and doctors and therapists. All that stands behind me. It's not just me and a couple of guys answering the phone.
Are there any things that we could say to patients that are other signs of the worst that you think might be wrong?
Specifically, no. In this case, it has to be from the heart. We have to want to believe that these people can change. We have to drop the stigma that once a junkie, always a junkie. You've got to believe that there's something in this person that might be worth saving. Even if he's the homeless guy wearing 7 coats all year round. You've got to believe it. And even if it's just a short thing, it's love and motivation that starts to change. Love and motivation. You know, you got this, you can do this. Do you want to keep doing this? Why do you keep doing this? And that's okay to say why, because not all of us understand addiction and disease of addiction. And I'm not going to try to stand up here and get scientific with everybody, because that's not me. It has to come from love. You have to believe that person can do it. And tell them you believe they can do it. Build that value inside of them, that little mustard seed of hope. Just build something inside them and say, I know that this isn't what your life is meant to be. When I was in Camden County Corrections, briefly I'll say this, I met a corrections officer, obviously, but I kind of befriended this guy. I got into an argument with another kid, and me and the corrections officer were talking about this argument that I had, and he said, you know what, Ray? I don't want to hear it. I respect him more than I respect you anyway. What do you mean you respect him more than you respect me? He said he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's a criminal. He loves being a criminal. He loves being a gang member. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, sitting in jail and causing problems. You're not. You should be out there doing something with your life, establishing a family, reconnecting with the family you already have. You should be in school. You should have a job. You should have a career. You should be somebody. You shouldn't be standing here in front of me talking about an argument with this guy. Motivation.
Anybody else, any more questions for Greg? In the back.
What was your rock bottom? Did you ever rock bottom or turned you around?
A lot of people talk about that rock bottom. I've had a lot of rock bottoms, but as addicts, I don't believe that. We'll hit rock bottom, we'll get a jackhammer, and we'll keep going. We'll find a new bottom. I swore I would never steal from my family until I did it, but it didn't stop me. I thought that was my bottom. You would think that jail and institutions and psych wards is a bottom. That wasn't a bottom. It wasn't until I was in Hampton Behavioral Health. And counselor said to me, he said, man, you really think you got it, huh? You haven't even hit your bottom yet. I said, bottom? I hit my bottom. I've been homeless. I've been in jail. My family cut me off. He said, no, you didn't. He said, Greg, do you know what your bottom is? I said, no. Enlighten me. And he does this. Greg, this is your bottom. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, we're gathered here today. And that's all he had to say. My bottom was in a casket. I've hit many bottoms and none were trying to change me. It had to come from a belief that I could be somebody other than just a drug addict. But remember this, I'm not cured. I will always be a drug addict. I will always be an addict. I have to remind myself every single day. It comes a little bit easier when you're helping other people and you're involved in this lifestyle. It becomes a lifestyle. But I have to wake up every day and say, okay, let's not use drugs today. Let's get through the day no matter what happens. That took a little bit of practice. But it had to start a little sooner than that. Just a little sooner than that. It was believing that if I do this on a daily basis, I'm going to get somewhere. That's the faith.
We'll put Greg's contact info out in the sign-out sheets this afternoon. Please take it with you. If you know somebody that will be appropriate to pass it on, please pass it on. And we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break then.